As far back as I can remember, I've always had a belief in the paranormal. I've always believed in God. I've always believed that there is far more to this life than the one we live now. And there's far more out there than we can properly, truly understand while we're still living on this earth. I've always had a massive interest in anything classified as paranormal. There has been a couple of occurrences in my lifetime that has helped mould this in me. Little things I've seen and heard, but perhaps none more than one incident that took place around 2004, when I was staying at a holiday home with a friend in Cornwall. The place we were staying in was HARBOUR, a little place by the sea. The house we stayed in is about 100 years old or so, very close to the graveyard. It's a holiday home that I've been to numerous times with my family since I was 5, and I've always had a weird, creepy feeling about it. There's always been a feeling of unease about it that I could never quite explain, even way back when I was 5. There was just a feeling of being watched, but as I never saw anything, I dismissed anything being there. But the time my best friend came with me, for some bizarre reason, we thought that it would be a good idea to make a homemade spirit board. We got our piece of paper, placed a candle beside it, wrote out the alphabet as a circle, placed a glass tumbler in the middle, and that was it. That was literally all it took. So we started. Lit our candle, placed our hands on top of the tumbler, mine on top of his, and then he pretty much issued an invite out loud for anyone out there to come through to the dingy little laundry room that we were doing it out of. It must have only been about 3 or 4 minutes into it, and it started to move. Obviously, as he was the one on the bottom, I looked to him to see his reaction. And the fear and tears that had sprung up in his eyes pretty much ruled out any thoughts I had that it might have been him. The force on the glass was incredibly strong. I had one hand free, so I was the scribe to write down any answers to questions. So my friend started asking, "Who are you? How did you die?" And so on. But either it was illiterate, confused, or just playing a joke on us, as it proceeded to give us answers that were nothing but a muddled jumble-up mess. None of it was coherent. That is, until the very last question. Are you going to leave now? This time, it knew its answer. The tumbler moved to N, back to the centre, and then to O, back to the centre. It repeated this numerous times. N, O, centre, N, O, centre, N, O, centre, N, O. It had no intention of going anywhere. But as quickly as it started, it ended. Just like that. The cold, clammy fear we felt went. We just no longer felt its presence. So, despite making it clear that it did not intend to go, it had. Or so we thought. Later that night, my parents were watching TV, and my dad is convinced that he saw a fully formed black figure pass by the curtains. The trick of the light? Perhaps. But at that exact same time, our dog, Shadow, went crazy, barking at the window, terrified. Nothing was there. Later still, when my parents were asleep, they woke suddenly to the dog howling and snarling as if something was standing at the edge of the bed. An intruder. He then demanded to be let out, and as soon as the door was open, he raced off outside into the garden and would not come back in. Nothing he'd ever done before. It's worth noting that my parents had no idea of what we'd done, so any suggestive thinking can be ruled out. They even joked with us afterwards, telling us about it, asking if we might have picked up a ghost in the graveyard on one of our walks. However, this was nothing compared to what happened next. For, the next day, my friend went to the bathroom, only to come out again shortly after, looking as if he'd seen a ghost. And while he'd not seen any shadowy figures, what he had found was no less disturbing. He told me to go into the bathroom with him, and then proceeded to point to the windowsill. There, etched inside the double glazing, was a pentagram. That had certainly never been there before. This was the inner pane that would not be accessible unless he physically removed it. This bathroom was on the top floor. It was unquestionably scratched in. But weirdly, the next day it had gone. One year later, I returned there with my parents, and, for the first time since I started going there aged 5, I felt that the air inside the house was clear. That oppressive feeling I'd always felt, as if someone was watching, wherever I went, was gone. It was as if we had exorcised whatever had been lurking there. But we really cannot take credit for that, as we had no idea what we were doing. As time goes on, I often think back to these events, and use them as a reminder when anyone tries to cast doubt in my mind on what I believe religiously and spiritually, and that there is nothing past this life. I don't agree. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And no, this is not my only encounter with the other side. But it certainly is the most memorable.